Greetings, this is TimeRider. When Austin over at Diecast Resurrection and I first swapped emails about doing a challenge, I was apprehensive. If you'd followed me, you know that my selections of castings are pretty pedestrian. Lots of lorries, old sedans, and coupes. My idea of a sexy custom is a Firebird or a Porsche. I love to finish my paint with Tamiya X22. And Austin, he finishes his with three things that I can't pronounce that make the car look like highly polished marble. Let's just say that his paint skills are the creme de la creme. He wanted a casting that had a wow factor, which is also relative because I think he and I define wow factor differently. When I went to the swap meet a couple of weeks ago, I knew I was going to be doing this, so I picked this up. It was $1, and it's not something I would normally buy. It's called 2, as in the number, cool. 2 cool. It was a promotional release that seems to be pretty widely available. It was also released under the names Way Too Fast, Two-Headed Street Freak, and who knows what else. Those, of course, had different color schemes. So today, I'll try to make 2 cool into 2 hot. So stick around.
Blub, blub, blub. Yeah.
So blubs for Jimmy. So this casting, aside from having these wonderful high quality Hot Wheels, had 2 posts, a plastic one and a metal one. A little plastic up here too. Wasn't a bad casting, but there wasn't a lot of body to it, so I can see why it was a promotional. Anyway, let's see what we can do with it. You know, I bet if this car actually existed, if you stomped on it, you'd find yourself 100 feet down the road sitting on the roof. But then again, when I was about 6, I wanted to be an Indian. Well, I'm sorry. A Native American. You know, the plastic, of course, drills easier, but I have to check it more frequently because I don't want to drill into the metal casting, at least not overly much. Came apart pretty easy. Basically, it's like 4 pieces. There's the casting, this plastic piece right here, the chassis, and then there's a little plastic piece around the radiator. And I'm not counting wheels, of course. And as I harp on all the time, you know, grinding the burr from around these posts will help the thing go back together. You know, and by the by, I finally broke one of my drill bits. But I didn't do it drilling a hole. The drill fell off my desk, and it had the bit in it. It was getting kind of dull anyway, so I bought a couple of new ones. This post is really narrow, but I think I'll be able to get it in a useful state. Again, it's a 2-56 tap, although I know a lot of the European guys use a 2mm, I guess they call it. I don't think it really matters. They both accomplish the same thing. And I got to put it back together at some point in time, right? So it needs a screw. And I didn't blow out the post or anything. So I knew for sure that a wheel swap was on the horizon. And at this point in time, I didn't even know what I was going to get for wheels. I just knew I needed to take these off. They were cheap hollow plastic wheels, and took the back off. And I'm sorry I kind of got off camera, but here's how I took them off. Yeah, I mean, a great big wheel on the back and a little wheel on the front. A lot of times when you buy wheel sets, they're all the same size. I got to give a shout out to George Hodges. He found a donor car that had the wheels I wanted. At least close enough. So I was going to do something with these pipes because I think they kind of look cheesy. So I was flattening off. There was a casting line that ran down the middle, and I wanted to flatten it off so I could paint the ends of the pipes black. And then this back bumper piece had a casting line running right down the middle of it too. And I wanted to make it rounder anyway. File, sand. I'm fairly certain that somewhere in my computer there is footage of me dropping this into a jar of stripper, but I don't know what I did with it. It's a really small casting, so cleaning it didn't take very long. I contemplated for a nanosecond putting a light on the inside of it, but I don't know. That's not really my thing. This is enough of a stretch for me, I think. It's not the kind of casting I would normally do. Don't get me wrong, I had fun doing it. And I really want to, I use steel wool on everything, but I really gave this one the business because I am going to do something with this that I've never done before, which is shoot Spectraflame. And I'm not going to put it, directly on the metal because it's got far too many imperfections in it. But I am going to paint it with gold leaf, Tamiya gold leaf, before I put the Spectraflame on it. So I want it really clean because, I want the paint to turn out, Put your best foot forward in these things, right? And I guess, too, I wanted to up my game a little bit. I said it at the beginning, Austin's really good at this stuff, and I admire that about his work. And I have no idea what this is going to look like. I am going to give it my best shot, though. Making sure I get it everywhere. Those narrow little windows, like I said, I thought about putting an LED in there because I thought the light would look good coming out of the windows. But part of it for me was I had so many other things going on, I didn't have the time. But it would have looked really cool, I think. And having never used, Spectraflame, I decided to do something easy and use one of the colors they have that doesn't require the hardener and all of that. And they happen to have hot pink, which I kind of liked. So I'm putting pink on gold, and I have absolutely no idea what it's going to look like. It does shoot nice. I will say that. The paint does, get richer and richer and richer the more coats you put on. The thing that I did notice is it seemed like it really took a lot to get to the point where it would like gloss up on its own. But I could be wrong. It's my first experience with it, and I was happy with the end result. And I didn't have any idea what it was going to look like. So I set the casting aside, and I literally was afraid to touch it for like 3 days. And not that I thought that I would wreck it or anything. I was so happy with it, I thought I didn't need to screw it up. And I know it seems like I'm obsessed with these pipes, but remember there's 16 of them, and they figure predominantly into the overall appearance of the model. So I saw Austin do this to a 1957 Chevy in his movie car challenge, and many years ago I used to build larger models like 1/24th scale, or maybe it's 1/48th. It's been kind of a while, but I used to do something similar with the trim on those cars. And it's a great idea because you're just using the strength of the casting in your favor. But boy, you really do have to be careful. And I'm gonna show the vast majority of this, and I apologize for my hands being in the way, but this casting is not real big. And what I did is I took a piece of 3000 grit sandpaper and folded it and folded it and folded it and folded it like Austin suggested in his video, which is exactly the right way to do it. And so it's really tight, and you have a pretty sturdy edge to the sandpaper. But look how clean that is. It's an incredibly cool way to do it. Just working my way around the car. The corners were really tough. And then I did eventually wind up using a file to finish off some of the stuff that was kind of near the edge. Other than that little spot on the front, I don't think I had any damage. Just trying to cut that line a little cleaner. It's a neat trick. Really, really neat. Anyway, let's move on. So once I had the chrome to my liking, of course, I need to put a clear over it to kind of lock everything into place, for lack of a better term. And of course, I'm using Tamiya X22. And, I gave Austin a little tease at the beginning of the video about the paints that he uses because, relative to what I generally do, his stuff is pretty exotic. And I give him a lot of credit. He knows what he's doing, and he does good work. And anybody who will do this kind of thing, not just a diecast, but with anything, and then record it and put it out there for others to critique at will. I got a lot of respect for people who do that, and I have a lot of respect for Austin and his painting skills. But I'd be a liar if I said my objective here I want to make a good showing. So, I have my pride. So I must be like getting forgetful in my old age, because I could have swore that I recorded everything I did to this model, and apparently I didn't. As you can see, the pipes are gray. That was basically because every time I go on the internet and look at like dragsters and stuff, it always seems like the pipes are gray, not chrome. And then I just use a Sharpie to blacken the end of each pipe to give it that, pipe look, for lack of a better term. But yeah, these things they figure so predominantly in the finished product. I wanted them to stand out. The replacement wheels that I found, in the case of the front axle, it was just pretty much a straight up replacement, because they came out of another Hot Wheel. So I had cut the little clips away like most people do. And then I'm just going to secure it with a drop of super glue once I get the axle centered where I want it. And I've probably mentioned this before, but I love this Loctite brand super glue. You squeeze the sides of the little bottle, and it comes out wonderfully controlled. And it usually doesn't glue itself shut. And then I put a little bit of baking soda on there to help it harden. So now the back axle was something different entirely. The donor vehicle had a really super narrow rear end. It was like a funny car. And so I had to split the axle because I needed it to be longer. My intention is to put a channel in here that I can run the axle ends into using this thin diameter tubing. But it's quite a bit larger than the original axle, so I have to grind a channel for that tubing to run through. And this actually goes on for a while, because it's slow slogging of me grinding a little bit and putting the channel in and grinding a little bit, because on the flip side, I don't want to go too far. I've done that far too many times in my life. So it's grind a little, check the channel to see where it sits, and eventually I found myself happy with where I was at. Now, the wheels they're real riders, so they're really nice wheels, and frankly, they're probably a little bigger than I would have liked. But like I said at the onset, trying to find a set of wheels that is even remotely staggered as the originals were. And it was important for me that the wheels roll. I didn't just want to glue the wheels on there. I guess I could have done that too. But I wanted them to roll. And this was probably the only mistake I made doing this, is I made the channel exactly as wide as the chassis, and it probably would have been better if I would have made it just slightly wider. So anyway, once I got all said and done, here you go. I got the front and the rear axles glued in the center, and then the two sides on the rear are glued as well, so the wheels spin. But you can see that there's a little bit of space there where those wheels will float a little bit in the back. So then, I needed to do something with the front. Basically, I just chromed the whole thing. Those air intakes used to be purple. I chromed them with my chrome pen. And, one thing about the plastic chrome, I think it's like almost too chrome. So I like to go over it with a thin black paint, a tire wash, and then rub it off with a Q-tip. And it kind of takes some of the edge off the chrome so it isn't so doggone bright. And then it also adds definition to the ridges in the chrome. And this is another thing that I've actually done going back a lot of years. And is it always perfect? No, but I think it looks better. So I was walking through the local big box and I saw this delicate surface frog tape. And, you know, I've had so much trouble with tape taking off paint, I thought I'd give it a try. And my intent, of course, is to paint the roof satin black. And I'll be really honest with you, before I did this tape off, I put the model onto the rotating table. I assembled it, put it onto the rotating table, and took some footage of it. Because if by chance I ruined the paint doing this, I wasn't going to start over. This was a lot of work, this whole model. It was a fun project, though. And I'm really, really interested to see what Diecast Resurrection comes up with. So here we are, back where I started. And I wanted to take a minute to thank Austin over at Diecast Resurrection for participating with me in this. It was a lot of fun. And I really, really had to step outside the box because, as I said, this is not a casting that I would normally buy. So anyway, without me babbling on too much longer, why don't we take a look at how I wound up. So hopefully I succeeded in turning too cool into too hot. Hey, at least with those tires you have a better than average chance of not killing yourself if you ever floored that thing. I get it though. This is TimeRider, and I'll leave the light on for you. Oh, stick around for an extra special version of the bench. You're not going to want to miss it. Thanks for sticking around for this special edition of the bench. What makes it so special, you ask? I'll get to that. First, I thought some might be curious what my Too Hot model looked like without the black roof. So here it is. Also, you know, I often communicate with other modelers, by email, and I told George over at Hodges Hot Wheels and Diecast that I hated castings with hyperbolic blown oversized motors. So it's a great irony that I did such a casting in this build. And also I need to give a shout out to George for helping me find a set of wheels for that. Anyway, on to the special part.
Say hello to my little friend.
So this is an even greater irony. A hyperbolic, blown motor in a wee little car. I was drawn to it. I was compelled to it. Are you ready for a ride? My little friend. Hey, let's say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. I know that 2.5% of my general audience is female. So if you're a mom, Happy Mother's Day. And to everybody else, thanks for coming to watch me do useless things in my retirement. And I'll say it one more time for the road. This is TimeRider, and I'll leave the light on for you.